wanna see you sweat. Come on, spirit, mind, body, work, yeah, work, yeah. 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 Spirit, work, yeah. Hey, everybody, come on, mind, work, yeah, work, yeah. Come on, body, work, yeah, work, yeah. I see you in the back. Come on, body, work, yeah, work, yeah. Come on, y'all, let's take it up. Spirit, work, yeah, mind, work, yeah.
Hi everyone and welcome. Welcome to this amazing broadcast. We have two special guests with us today, Dr. J.E. Block and Dr. Lindsay Berkson. Both of them are changing and revolutionizing the health industry. They have so much information, so much knowledge, and they're both authors. They travel the world. They're radio hosts. I mean, the list goes on. And so we are just privileged to have both of them with us today. I am going to let them give you a brief introduction of themselves. First, welcome you all. Welcome both of you, Dr. J.E. Block and Dr. Lindsay Berkson. How are you all this morning?
We're really fun to get two docs in one.
I know. I mean, what a Saturday morning. Oh my goodness.
That ages us, so we're anti-aging doctors. So
We're all old.
you know, I was telling a friend the other day. She said she was not getting a job because of her age, and I said, Doc Block and I are so lucky because we are in the one profession where people want to see that we're doing really well older. So we don't have any issues with employment.
But if they had to push us around in a wheelchair, if they had to remember where our street is so we can get home, I think that they'd take some exception. Or they saw that some of us didn't have hair, maybe they would be concerned. But now it's in style. When I was 30 years old and had no hair, I was concerned, but now a lot of guys don't have hair. Yeah.
But our whole life has been about how to slow down the Mack truck of time.
Wow.
And you know, as people age, aging picks up speed. You age faster at 38 than you aged at 32. You age faster at 60 than you do at 50. And people get tired. So energy is the true currency. And we're about rebooting that for people.
And you can. One can boot it when they're in their 20s and their 30s. The hard thing, but it can be done when they're 80s and 90s, reboot it and get somebody who's 90 years old chronologically back to 70 or 60 physiologically.
That is some of our so exciting work. We can take a lady who's been isolating in her 90s, feels like she's unsure of herself, she's not going out in her community, her kids are really worried about her, and by working with her with natural means, suddenly she has her life back. We get these letters from her children saying, thank you for giving me my mom back. Right.
And patients frequently write you, thank you for letting me be, thank you for letting me have my life back.
Right, so it's really, and we try and live it ourselves. We've been living it for decades.
We practice what we preach. But sometimes, like when you came down to Tulsa to visit me, Angie,
Yes.
it's hard. I have to get a good night's sleep. I have to eat right. I can't do all the wonderful things I want to do all night long. I have to call a moratorium and go to bed. Oh, it's terrible.
I don't know how to approach it that way. I live very, very well 80% of the time, maybe 85% of the time, always working out, eating well, but that 15%, I let myself just go and have fun because I think life is to be embraced and lived. So I think you live well so you can have some of those moments where you don't worry about exactly what you're doing.
So, my saying, life is to be enjoyed, not endured. But if you enjoy too much of it, you'll have to endure a lot of sadness. So, everything in moderation, including moderation.
Right. Wow. Both of them, you guys can see that they're just on the same page, and health and wellness looks good on both of you. You are carrying it very, very well. I love that you both mentioned like we have the ability within really to be our best. And I know both of you support that. And Dr. Block, I have a book here with me. It's called Discover the Doctor Within. Be your best second opinion. And I know there's been a lot of people that they've gone to a doctor and they've gotten one opinion, and they didn't stop there, but they got another one and found out a totally different diagnosis, which was actually to their benefit. So it really does help to be your second best opinion. So Dr. Block, could you share just a bit about that?
Well, it's certainly, doctors do have their own agenda. I know that they have the patient's best interests at heart, but they work and learn, and we're put into a box that we have to do things according to standards, and there's an algorithm that you do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, and it works out very well for a given patient or an ideal patient, but no one is standard. Everybody's a little bit different, and it's like putting a round peg in a square hole. So seeing Dr. X who thinks this diagnosis, Dr. Y who thinks this diagnosis, Dr. Z who thinks another diagnosis, and I tell my patients, I educate my patients that they should make the decision for themselves. Do not listen to the doctor. Yes, they can listen to it, but please realize that it's coming from a human being, not from the Lord. If the Lord tells them what to do, or in the heart they feel the right thing to do is not do chemotherapy for this cancer, that there's only 5 cases of people living more than 5 years, and they have to take this terrible chemotherapy that they feel so bad that the last month or 2 of their lives is miserable. That's not the way to go.
Thank you for that. Just, really embracing the fact that we are in control and we gear this ship, right? We are the captain of our own.
We should steer the ship, but sometimes there's little gremlins that are trying to steer the ship, that are trying to put the ship off balance. And some of these come in the form of children, or meaningful friends, or neighbors that will tell you, if you do this, you're going to kill yourself. And we don't need those gremlins around.
It used to be, in the olden days, the days of Dr. L.O.V, the people thought the doctors, just like you just said, the Lord, were God. And there was a study that came out about 2 months ago that 1 out of every 20 diagnoses was wrong. And the Mayo Clinic came out with a study about a year ago that many procedures and recommendations in standard care medicine are within 10 to 15 years completely reversed because they're either found not to be effective or to be dangerous. And so when people go to a physician, they think they're getting all the data that's available and getting the definitive recommendation. But there's too much information. A lot of docs mainly practice what they were taught 15, 20, 30 years ago. And there's so much about tuning into the patient that the paradigm of medicine today doesn't really allow you to do. The PA comes in and takes your history and physical. The doc comes in and is looking at the computer. You don't get the time, as less reimbursement is coming down the track. So in these changing times of swirling information, of a doctor truly only being a human being and having an opinion that's only based on his experience. My ex was an emergency room doctor, and he knew that if he knew a better procedure that would be helpful for that patient at another facility, he couldn't keep his job if he recommended it.
Wow.
So there's so many dynamics that take place that you've got to know that no one will ever care about your health as much as you. That the guy sitting in front of you or the woman sitting in front of you is just a human being with many expert opinions and many biases that might not serve you. And when you ask them their opinion about a natural protocol, a nutrient, a procedure that's unusual, if they're not up on it, they're usually down on it, because they're used to telling people all day long what to do, and they don't like to seem comfy that they don't know something, unless they're a highly evolved emotional person, which, there's only so many of those people around, even including physicians.
So it's our paradigm. If they go to, like, the story of the 5 blind men and the elephant,
Right.
if you go to an MD who specializes in surgery, and that bump on the hand, that is something that really needs to be removed because it's going to get bigger and interfere with the function of the hand, so let's remove it. They go to someone like you who will feel it and say, oh, this is just a small ganglion, it's not going to bother you, you can live with that and it will live with you for the next 50 years, let it be. And then you go to maybe a shaman. The shaman will say, let me think
Move the
about
energy.
it, and move the energy, and they move it, and they move it, and they move it, and lo and behold, it's gone. And as a man of science, how could that be? But as somebody's been on this planet for 76 years, for 55 years seeing this, and miracles happen, I wouldn't mind rubbing on my ganglia until it disappears.
Well, so I've been a scientist and a clinician and an author, but my biggest teaching has been that I've been a patient. And when my mother was pregnant,
Wow, what a patient you've been.
huge patient. I mean, I've learned a lot of medicine, unfortunately, from the inside out, which has turned out to be fortunate for many of my patients. But my mother was recommended by well-intentioned physicians when she was pregnant with me to take a drug that at the time was thought to be a miracle drug and given like a prenatal vitamin to pregnant women. It was given for 36 years to millions of women until they basically discovered that it was a class 1 carcinogen and a really powerful estrogenic drug in a bad way. And many of the children born to women who were given this drug by well-intentioned doctors when they were pregnant, I don't have children, I couldn't, because infertility is a very high issue in female offspring.
Didn't give you children, but gave you cancer.
Gave me cancer. So 85% of us had breast cancer, so I had 20 years ago, and at that time I really suspicioned a link, because early on there were animal studies that showed that exposure to this drug in utero, meaning when you're a fetus, was linked to cancer. Well, now this year, for the very first time, 3 DES daughters that are nicknamed for exposure to that drug have been given lots of money for having breast cancer. But I wanted to come to a point, so I had a tumor in my kidney, because DES causes lots of tumors. So I had to deal with that. And I told the whole team of doctors at the Mayo and at a hospital in San Francisco that it was too small. There was a high likelihood that it wasn't cancer. And we battled it, and they laughed at me. They said, no, it's a garden variety kidney tumor. You're going to have I understand what it's like to sit behind the desk with people in white jackets telling you you have to do this. And my research and my gut and my heart knew that it wasn't right, and I let myself be convinced. But I begged them not to take my adrenal gland, because I really didn't feel that that was necessary. Long story short, I had a kidney.
Not only did they take your kidney, but they took your adrenal gland.
I went into adrenal failure, and only to discover that they had told me they would not take it, but they did. And lo and behold, several weeks later, I get a call from the surgeon. Well, I got good news and bad news, and the good news is that you didn't have cancer, and the bad news is you didn't have cancer, and it was just a benign tumor. And I had to deal with all of that and really learn about adrenal fatigue from the inside out, not be angry at those docs, but now I know beyond a doubt you have to develop a sense of what's right in your own body. And if someone in a white jacket or even a team of researchers says to you, this is what you should do, and you don't feel like that's what you should do, don't do it. Even with all my background, I got talked into it. So I have learned now to really honor the inner forces of the body. And I know that the body's designed to heal, since I've rebooted myself from what I had to come through from the side effect of that surgery.
You say this very well, that you give the human being, the body, all the tools it needs. And like the sperm and the egg that and produce a fetus, a wonderful person, you too will heal. But sometimes we have to give the tools or find out what tools are needed.
Right, and that's the tough part. That's the art and the science. Which is why they need people like you that look at the whole person.
And we do have a lot of science. The unfortunate thing, it takes 2 decades, 20 years before something is researched on the bench,
right,
comes out in medical journals, and then doctors start using it.
We've been in integrative medicine. I've been in practice 46 years. I'm 65. And he's been in practice, how many years? Almost 50 years. You're 75. And we were in this from its very pioneering beginning. And now I just came from the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine in Orlando, Florida. There's 1,000 doctors every other weekend wanting to learn this because now it's starting to go mainstream. But they don't have those decades of experience.
In the future, things will be
They'll
better.
be very better.
And they need to be better. We talked about this before, that although we are a wonderful country and we have so many modern things, that like we're number 36 in modern countries with how we practice medicine.
We spend more money on medicine and we do not have one of the really longer
Neonatal mortality.
right,
What
longevity.
what we do with cancer. So maybe we all should move to Okinawa or Sardinia.
Right, that's where people have more centenarians. Although, this is what I don't get. Our society worships youth and always being happy and having a perfect body. There are so many wonderful benefits of having decades behind you if you have your energy and you're well.
How come you have both? You have your energy, your wealth, your young body, your young mind. How come you do that?
Oh, it's been a long, because we've learned what to do to do it. But centenarians in the United States are the fastest growing demographic. And we have almost the largest demographic of aging people. So I want to really make a message to women that getting older is fabulous. You have all these stories. You can compare, you understand, you have empathy, and everyone looks beautiful to you. When you're younger, you're so critical of how people look, and as you get older, really more and more people look beautiful to you, and your heart is owned, you feel well. And so it's all about how do you take this lump of clay that God has given you with all of the issues that you might have, or genetic alleles and polymorphisms, and whip yourself up in your physiologic kitchen, that energy, that resilience when life hits you, because it always does with stuff, and come out healthy. And you can reboot in your 60s, 70s, and 80s, but the earlier you start, even in midlife if you start, you push back ill health and you live better longer. It's amazing.
Angie taught me that you don't have to wait till your 40s or 50s. I'm not sure how young she is.
Just lost her.
No, I'm here. I'm listening. I'm soaking up every word, as I'm sure everyone else is too.
For hello, and then we saw another.
No, it is so great.
Real star came on you.
No, you're absolutely right, Dr. Buck.
5 years back in our life, but you started your journey early, and it's so wonderful. You have more years to enjoy yourself, and you'll be even younger to doing this in your 20s and 30s rather than waiting till the 70s or 80s. But the statement is you're never too late. It's never too late to be.
Well, could you guys speak about that? Because you guys, you spoke about rebooting, and there are many people who are watching now, and of course, things have gotten in the way. You know, they've raised 3 to 5 children or more, and many of them they've launched in, far into their careers, and so they've really allowed their bodies, their health to kind of stay at that plateau, and they've actually, been in mediocrity, which many people find themselves in, and now they're going, okay, it's time to reboot, it's time to increase my vitality, no more mediocrity. I have got to put myself first because I want to see my grandchildren. I don't want to, live in the bed. So could you please talk about what are some of the things that people can do right now to reboot, to to slow down that aging process, right?
You've done a good job. How
do you tell your clients, your patients, to slow down that Big Mac truck and age?
The mother of your health is your gut. I wrote Healthy Digestion the Natural Way. It came out 14 years ago, and now it's used to train integrative docs by the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. And I have a brand new intestinal book coming out, because your gut is the epicenter of your health. So one of the real issues of figuring out how to be well is figuring out which foods are your friends and which foods are your foes. And people can give you general templates and guidelines. You should eat low glycemic, you should eat fresh foods. But what really is taking it a step further is figuring out which foods are your kryptonite and getting them out, getting your bad stuff out. So we don't get the general bad stuff out, but get your personal stressor. So working with someone to identify, or just doing an avoidance elimination diet, or just tuning in to how you feel within a 24-hour period after you eat foods, how your bowels move, how your energy is, how you sleep, if you have nightmares or not. How do you feel after specific foods? And identifying the foods that don't work for you. Hidden food stressors, you can call them allergies, sensitivities, intolerances, and they could be measured. They could be a reaction with immunoglobulin, they could be a reaction without it. But foods that don't work for you rip you off of energy and make you age more faster. So I think that's a start, and making sure that your digestion and your gut flora is healthy, because your gut flora is constantly talking to your immune system, and you have 70% to 80% of your immune system in your gut. You have crosstalk. Your body is a big gossiping set of communities of cells, gossiping, and talking and making things work. But the ultimate conversation starter, like The View, Oprah, right in the gut, starts there. So
some things are just feeling how you feel,
right.
But then there are things looking and smelling. And I just finished a copy reading your manuscript. She wrote 440 pages.
It's for the practitioner and the patient, called Digestive Freedom, Eat Your Way to Intestinal Wellness. It's not out yet. I just gave him, it's unedited. He just is the first person to read it out of my computer.
But you have at least a dozen pages on checking your health, just like you put a dipstick in the oil to see how much oil you have. We have a dipstick too.
That's true. That's a great way of putting it. I should put that in the book.
But the little hole that you put it in is what things come out. And we're talking about feces.
Right. You can tell a lot about how well you are absorbing, how well your mother is in sync with you by looking in the morning. I even have my patients send me on their smartphones their first 3 days in a row, the pictures of their stool, because most people say, oh, I'm fine, but then when you look at it, it's not. It shouldn't be stinky. A healthy stool is kind of have a sweet smell. It should be very homogeneous in color. You shouldn't see undigested food. It shouldn't fall apart in bits and pieces when it hits the water. This is most of the time. Once in a while, you have an emotional day, or you eat something wrong and you have a change in your stool, that's no big deal. But if regularly you have a tendency to constipation, to diarrhea, to an odd-colored stool, to a stinky stool, something is going wrong. Your food is more your enemy than it's your pharmacy. And that's a big deal. That's where health starts. That's the mother of your health, your gut.
I read that chapter just recently,
Yeah.
And you talked about how often. You said between 1 and 3 times a day.
Right. You know, some people, I ask them, I always go into a detailed intake of how food sits with somebody. And they'll say, I'm fine. And then I discover,
Sits with somebody.
I mean, sits in their gut.
Not shits with somebody. We're not allowed to.
We're not just talking heads, are we?
Both of us do radios and television. Some things we can say, some things we can't. But 1 to 3 times a day, and you said it's okay if you go away, travel for a week, and for the first day or 2 not have a bowel
Right,
movement.
traveling is commonly stops a bowel movement. But in general, if you skip a day several times a month, I have patients that come in and are only eliminating once a week, and we know that puts them at risk of their immune system doesn't work as well, their hormones don't work as well, they're at risk of breast cancer, of cognitive decline, of just feeling tired all the time, and then they drink more coffee, and then they start doing things because they don't feel well, and they go to the doctor and they get medications, when a lot of it starts with they're eating foods that don't agree with them, and they're insufficient in specific digestive enzymes.
And the acid in the stomach that starts the whole process. And to make matters worse, over the counter you can get magic medicine, so the doctors think and the patient thinks that turns the whole process off. Drugs like Prolosec over the counter, or Nexium, Acifex.
You know, many people in society are having what we call reflux dyspepsia. We have a lot of uncomfortable feelings, and sometimes they're very severe and painful. And it's happening now in 7 and 8-year-olds, 15-year-olds. And I'm seeing this across the board. Many things we used to see in adults, because of our eating habits and stress and chemicals and toxicities in the environment, we're seeing in younger kids. And what the doctor's knee-jerk reflex reaction is, there's 12 million scripts written every year, maybe it's up to 14 million, for antacids. That's the reflex script for all of these uncomfortable gut issues.
And pediatricians are also writing them for kids.
Infants even. And the number one domino for a healthy, functioning gut, stomach acid, you block your minerals and you get tired. You literally develop malnutrition. You block your B12, your vitamin B absorption. Your brain is basically B vitamins in a bag of essential fatty acids. Your brain doesn't work as well. You block your magnesium, so you're more at risk of arrhythmias. Then you go to the heart doctor and he puts you on a med for arrhythmia, but it's because you're not absorbing your magnesium. And you end up becoming on a pharmaceutical train when you didn't really figure out the core cause of why you're fatigued or having irregular
and
heart
some
beats.
people that are giving the antacids, the drugs that stop the acid, not that they have too much acid, but they have too little acid.
Right. Not everyone, but the most common cause of heartburn, it sounds counterintuitive, but the most common, and we could go into the whole mechanism, but I don't want to bore you, but the most common cause of heartburn in the majority of people is actually too little acid. In my old practice, I had a very sophisticated machine called a Heidelberg gastric analysis machine. It cost almost $185,000. You have to have a room and a nurse, and I ran thousands of those and discovered that even 3-year-old kids, especially with ADHD and autism spectrum disorder, they could be, actually the core issue was they didn't make enough stomach acid. They weren't reducing their minerals to the proper electrical valence state where you get the bang for your buck out of your food. And they were having attentional issues, being put on meds, having stress on the family, when a lot of it came down to poor digestion. You wouldn't think that. You think a 3-year-old should just be digesting great. So evaluation of your digestive enzymes, all of them.
But that test, I also had one of those.
You did? You had a Heidelberg machine?
But mine was even more expensive because I had to build a Faraday.
It's a big deal running that test. What do you mean a Faraday around it?
Well, so what this test, not that these people are interested, but you swallow a little capsule that's very expensive.
This is the definitive test to see if you make stomach acid.
And it has
We've both done this.
a transmitter, and it transmits the pH of wherever it is, in the esophagus, in the stomach, in the duodenum, in the jejunum, etc. And these pills were fairly expensive. It cost me $45 a piece.
Boy, they cost me $75. Where did you get those? And you have a little an antenna
that's
around your body that picks up the
But that's
radio
why you
waves.
did you put a string on it so you can pull it out?
I did. Well, I didn't know. I didn't pull it out. I put it on a string and taped it to their jaw so that it would stay in the stomach. And then we cut the string and let them swallow it. No, we didn't pull it out.
Oh, to use it again? Then you do it half price? But anyhow, there was a receiver, and if there were what we call dirty radio waves, where if the receiver did not get the exact transmission from the gut, from the capsule, you couldn't get good waves. You get
Well, the
all
bottom
these
line of it is, it really told you whether you made stomach acid
so
or
I had to
not.
have copper wrapped around that room.
Oh, we didn't have to do that. I wonder. I had a practice in Palo Alto, California, I don't know, we didn't have to do that.
Well, this is in Kansas. We have dirtier radio waves there. But anyhow, Faraday.
But what's interesting, this is so interesting, the cells that make stomach acid, they're called parietal cells. And they have the highest volume per percentage of cell of mitochondria, which are the energy furnaces of your cell. In other words, the body wants you to make stomach acid. You need to kill the bugs that are coming down your food, to absorb your minerals. It's a really high energy demand. If you're under stress, if you're in surgery, if you're going through a divorce, if you're aging, most 70% of people over 60 lose their energy, and those cells whip out, and they don't make stomach acid. Do you know the highest mitochondrial percentage in the cell in the body? I'm going to give you a test question here. Da, 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 da,
Oh, I can talk about the pancreas, but I don't know more stuff. You tell me.
The hippocampus in the brain. The hippocampus in the brain has the highest blood flow of any tissue in the body because it's the seat of where you are in space, who you are, your mojo, your self-confidence, and your short-term memory. It's the part that shrinks before you get Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. And those two portions of the body, two tissues of the body, your body wants longingly for you to keep well. And that's why hormones, bioidentical hormones, are so healthy when you age, because they reboot the volume of your hippocampus like a woman going in and getting Botox in your lips.
So the hippocampus could become a hippopotamus, big and fat?
It can be revolumized to the level that you had when you were younger, hopefully. That keeps you oriented in your life.
As doctors, we used to know that once a neuron dies, it dies. And now we know it can grow again.
Yes, but even in your 90s it can grow. Isn't that exciting?
You can cut out half your liver, 3/4 of your liver, and it'll grow back to full liver.
It's amazing. God made us. God is like amazing.
Can you take a third of your hippocampus and grow it to a full?
You can't do a hippocampusectomy, but I'll tell you, a bunch of researchers at McGill University in the Department of Psychiatry in 2008 won the coveted Kurt Richter Award. They won $100,000 because they did MRIs. We can look in the brain now. And they saw some people in their 40s with earlier dementia with this hippocampus. It's called that because in Latin it's the shape of a little seahorse. And the name hippocampus is similar to Greek or Latin for the seahorse shape. And they saw that it was, they could actually measure on an MRI the volume. How much volume? Your brain is about, size matters. It's about size. And they saw that they were shrinking, and they gave testosterone replacement to men and estrogen replacement to women, and exercise did this too. So some groups, they did each separate intervention. And then within 5-6 weeks, they went back and did post-MRIs, and they were able to show that you could reboot the volume of the hippocampus, and the patient was becoming more frail, unsure of themselves, not recalling names, feeling like, I don't know if I can go out and get that job. I don't know if I don't feel comfort taking this step. Those are all signs of the hippocampus shrinking. People got all that mojo back. So you can reboot your hippocampus.
So I really can get on my seahorse and through the sea.
Through the sea.
Wow. Oh my goodness. It's so amazing to just hear you all speak, and we are all sponges and we're soaking it up so fast. I have questions just pouring in. I wanted to ask you about the acid, because you spoke a lot about the stomach acid. Now, what are some things that people can do to either increase or get that stomach acid at a balance that they need to? Is it, whether it be probiotics or different things like that? What would you suggest?
Should we just first go over the symptoms of low stomach acid?
That would be great.
Great. You might suspicion it. So if you have fatigue or a problem that doesn't go away and you can't figure out why. If you take magnesium and minerals or multivitamins, even herbs, and you don't get what you thought should have been the result, because you need stomach acid even to absorb herbs. If you have heartburn, now some people have it from too much, but many have it from too little. If you're constipated, you have a tendency to constipation, tendency to loose stools, so abnormal stools. If you feel a little nauseated in the morning, if you look at your tongue in the mirror and it's very coated and it has a lot of cracks and crevices down the middle, aging, just as your skin thins and you start to shrink, the lining of your gut and those cells that make your stomach acid start to shrink. So if you're older, did I miss anything?
You got it.
I got it. So those give you an idea that you might be. If food, when you eat food, you just don't feel as good. You should feel either the same or really excellent. That food is your sustenance. People low in stomach acid get full very quickly. They get full really quickly and food sits there. It doesn't digest well. And they often wake up with no hunger.
But then you taught me one way to find out. You don't have to have this expensive Heidelberg test. And that's why I got rid of mine. You can take a pill or two, and this is called no prescription, betaine, pepsin, hydrochloride. And the hydrochloride, of course, is hydrochloric acid.
Betaine, hydrochloride, plus pepsin.
And pepsin is an enzyme that's really betaine hydrochloride. And the betaine itself, although they think it's good for homocysteine, that's a different kind of betaine. We'll talk about that some other time. But
just called chloride with pepsin. And in my book, Healthy Digestion in the Natural Way, which you can get on Amazon, on page 196, I talk you through this step-by-step test if you do better or worse with taking some stomach acid in the middle of a meal, never beginning and never after. But I go through that on that one page 196.
635 milligram size. It comes in several sizes. There's a half size, a whole size, and then not before the meal, not after the meal, but during the meal, you take one.
You start with
two,
one.
or 3 or 4, or sometimes you have people as many as 5.
Well, you start with one mid-meal, every meal, and you just see how you feel. If you don't get any worse, you don't have any heartburn and feel like, oh, this doesn't feel right. If that does, then you're one of the people who either has enough or too much stomach acid. But if you don't feel anything, then the next day, not at one time, you increase to 2 mid-meal. And you can go up because some people need quite a bit in the beginning to reboot. Sometimes those cells can be rebooted, and for a few months you take stomach acid replacement, and then your own cells reboot. Sometimes people need to be on just a dinner, their heavier meal. There's nuances, which I go into detail in my new book, even more than my old book, so stay tuned for Digestive Freedom. But that is an important thing, figuring out if you make enough stomach acid. Do you take stomach acid?
I have not. I should.
Well, I know you don't have any issues though, right? You have the body of a 50-year-old dude.
Well, one of the things that also mimic not enough control here, too much stomach acid, is gluten intolerance.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that was in the next
Right, if you have a lot of food allergies or different issues, that's another symptom, a suggestion of low stomach acid, especially gluten.
Dozens of people every month that I see,
Uh-huh.
I tell them no gluten, no of that G word, and they get better. Not only does that better, itching gets better, their eyesight gets better, their headaches go away, their arthritis is better, they have more energy, and they just get rid of that G.
Now, if you want to, at my new website, bodymindhormones.com, you can go and sign up for free and get a version. My book isn't out yet, now I've edited it a little bit, but you can get an entire chapter on how and why to go gluten-free for free. You just go sign up on my mailing list.
Gluten-free, free?
Free. It's free squared.
Free book?
Not the free book, but the free chapter.
Oh, free
It's
chapter.
a chapter. So you can sign up on bodymindhormones.com. The reason I named the website that is I was I was a contributing author in the first book to use the term body, mind, spirit, which came out in 1981 with a group of doctors that term had never been used before. So using that term now, body, mind, hormones, I was hoping it came full circle.
Well, certainly in Tulsa, body, mind, spirit. And Tangi has been in Tulsa. Now this is where ORU, and they had a medical school, praying hands.
Yes.
And they had body, mind, spirit.
Right.
Is that right?
Right. And you speak a lot about that too in your book, about the mind and how important that is, and even just to calm yourself. Now, we've talked a lot about the stomach acid. I want to slide into blood pressure, because you spoke about something called Calm in your book, and it speaks about it's something that you can get to, to help with your blood pressure, but more than just that, it's the whole thing, the body, mind, and the spirit, as it pertains to, the heart. And a lot of women are on here, and many have went through divorces and just different things that really affects the body. And blood pressure is huge, and one of the number one things that cause of death is the heart disease, correct, doctors?
Yeah.
Could we kind of slide into that, talking a little bit about blood pressure and the whole body, mind, and spirit concept, how it relates to health in the body?
What is high blood pressure? It's more than just numbers. Some days I don't even believe in hypertension. Hypertension, higher than normal pressure in the blood.
This is an interesting conversation. Why is that?
Why don't I believe
Yes.
in the term hypertension, high
This
blood
is
pressure?
such an interesting conversation.
Because blood pressure is in direct relationship to how healthy the blood vessels are. And it's not the blood pressure, which is an epiphenomena, a reflection of what's going on within the blood vessel.
Right.
It is the blood vessel itself. So whatever we're saying about hypertension, it's really the motor in the motor around the blood vessel itself that makes the blood vessel smaller into the same volume in a given same volume, and you decrease the outside.
It's like having a hose and sticking your foot on the hose, and the pressure builds up. So you're saying that the inside of the intimal lining of the artery, the endothelium, is a whole. It's the start of the blood pressure show. So how do you get that in a yoga class? How do you take the lining of your arteries?
And if you expand it, then there's less pressure, the blood pressure goes down. So we talk about two types of blood pressure. The top, called the systolic, the bottom, the diastolic. And it used to be, and things have changed, and just changed last month when the new guidelines came out. And they said, well, we're pushing the limit of blood pressure too much. We used to say it was 100 plus the age, so I could have 176. That would be normal because I'm 76 years old. On the other hand, the American Red Cross in the 1970s says it should be no more than 150, and that was the guidelines for the top figure. And then they said 12 years ago that it should be much lower. 122 is great blood pressure. 121 may be even better because there is a line going up from 118. Every 1 point above 118, it would decrease life expectancy by a little bit and earlier in life to disability. More recently, they came out of the J-shaped curve. That is, the lower the blood pressure is to the point, the better life is, the less mortality, less morbidity. When you get it too low, it's the other way around. To have a blood pressure of 100, you won't live as good as long as if your blood pressure is 120. So too much of a good thing. So the guys have gone at that with 135. 135 considered normal, but if one had diabetes, if one had high cholesterol, if one had a history, family history even, of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, they need to get their blood pressure less than 135. The paradigm has shifted a little bit, so now I would say 136 or 137, but certainly not much higher than that.
I feel better when my blood pressure is at 125. I think people need, especially as you age, a little bit more blood pressure. If it goes too low, you can hardly get off. You become a couch potato. You can't get off low blood pressure.
And one of the signs of adrenal fatigue is low blood pressure. So the causes of high blood pressure.
Now, what makes that inside lining? You want the inside of your blood vessel to dilate so you can not die early. You want to dilate. You want to dilate, just like you want your artery to dilate. So
if you
how do
want
you
to
do
die,
that?
you have to dilate.
Right.
And it's not just the integral lining, it's the cells around it. That's
Right.
why I want the smooth muscle cells around it constrict the blood vessel. And to add insult to injury, the endothelium, the inside lining, makes it even thicker.
And it comes back to stomach acid, because if you eat greens, which are captured sunlight, green leafy things are captured sunlight, the center of the chlorophyll molecule is magnesium. And you need stomach acid to absorb magnesium, and magnesium is nature's Valium. It's captured sunlight. It's the mineral that gives you what the leaves face the sun and develop, and it keeps those muscles around the arteries relaxed.
So what she is saying, that one of the biggest factors in lowering the blood pressure is consuming magnesium from natural sources, and as you heard, it's captured sunlight, it's in the foliage,
Foliage, right.
foliage.
Well, I just want to make sure they got it. I knew what you said.
The green leaves and stuff.
That was a Jewish expression of foliage.
So it has magnesium, or one can actually buy magnesium. You mentioned the product Calm, made by Peter Gillen, and you can get that at all the health food stores. You can get it at big supermarkets, and magnesium, you can take that. Now there is magnesium and there are magnesium.
I was just going to say.
And the magnesium that's mostly bought, mostly consumed, and works the least is magnesium oxide.
Do not buy if you look at a multi-mineral and multivitamin, it's got magnesium oxide, that's one hint that that product is pretty junky. And because that doesn't work very well. Magnesium can ride piggyback it has to ride piggyback on a carrier molecule to swim around in your bloodstream. And there's many carriers, piggyback carriers that magnesium can ride on, and they all have purposes. So when someone comes in as a patient, we know different types of magnesium to give them for different issues.
And so these are referred to as magnesium chelates.
Right.
The piggyback that it rides on is an organic compound.
Right.
And it can be, and the most commonly one I prescribe is citrate, but it can also be taurine, arginate,
laurethate, glycinate, chelate, goes on. And they each have if someone is getting cognitive decline a little bit, we want to drive the magnesium right into the brain to do its sunshine magic in the brain. We'll piggyback it on taurine, so we have magnesium taurate. So I give everyone over midlife a magnesium glycinate and a magnesium taurate. I give several because magnesium is the one area where God made a boo-boo.
Oh.
Because when we're stressed out, which 24/7 stress, you even hear little kids talking about being stressed, it's very hard to hold on to magnesium. You lose it in your sweat, in your stool, in your urine, in your saliva. You lose magnesium often at a faster rate than you hold it into your cells. And so you really do need green vegetables, so leafy green vegetables and magnesium.
Talking about lowering blood pressure, magnesium. The second mineral, or maybe even the first and second would be magnesium, is potassium. Potassium. And one could buy potassium pills, but I don't recommend it. You get minimal amount of potassium, 99 milligrams per tablet.
Why is that?
And it looks like, gee, 99 milligrams, that's a lot. It's almost 100. But the amount of magnesium, potassium in that is so minimal that one needs to take a dozen of those pills a day. Far better to do it naturally. And fruits and vegetables do have potassium. Meat have potassium. But things that contain sodium have less potassium. The enemy for hypertension in many things.
Refined sodium.
Refined sodium.
They have that.
About sea salt versus natural salt versus salt from Morton.
Versus salt from the sky.
But potassium, and I recommend no salt. The product No Salt by Morton's, New Salt by Continental, and 1/3 of a teaspoon a day of
Are you guys with me? Okay, this is such rich information. What I'm going to do, you all, we are going to get them back on just as swiftly as possible, so bear with me. Certainly rich information indeed. Such an amazing group of doctors with us today. Again, we're with Dr. J.E. Block and Dr. Lindsay Berkson. Both are a wealth of information. So if you are joining us, they will be just right back with us, giving them just a break. We will be going past 10 today because we have these two incredible doctors with us. So we will be probably going to about 10:30. So stay with us. You don't, and they're coming right back with us. Okay, so just a moment, everyone, and we'll be right back with the doctors. Give us just one moment. So we're going to give them a second to just take just a quick break. You guys can send your questions to info@circleofvitality.com. Again, that's info@circleofvitality.com. And we look forward to the questions. We're getting back up here. Bear with us. Okay, everyone, we're right back. Hi there.
Hi there.
Hi there. We just took just a quick break, everyone, and we have Dr. Lindsay Berkson. She is right there with us, and so I'm sure you all are enjoying this, and I am just overwhelmed with gratitude that you all would sit together and choose to really deposit such rich information. You all are a wealth of information. I know that our possibilities in us run so deep, and you guys certainly have tapped deep into your possibilities of knowledge, and you are definitely a wealth of knowledge. Dr. Lindsay, since we have you, and I'm so excited because you will be back with us, but you've written some amazing books, and I had the opportunity to go to your website, Mind Body Hormones, and I loved it and could not stay off it. So you have such rich material. So would you go over those things again that you think would be great for people to purchase and peruse?
Okay, one of the things we were just talking about, how you know a lot of people love junk food and they want to know how do I love healthy food, and you can retrain your palate so that you're in charge of your life and your tongue isn't running your health. So I actually wrote a book called Retraining Your Tongue, and I have a picture of a woman with a tongue on a leash trying to feed it some broccoli, which is, I thought, a great image of retraining your tongue. And this book is written for moms with kids, and it's got many pictures in it. It's a big 8.5 by 10 book with lots of pictures, but it goes over diet and the important basic aspects of diet in a very easy to read manner. The whole family, even your husband, could sit around and enjoy and get the information. You could read it in about a half hour. Basic, important nutritional information. So you can get that on Amazon, or you can buy that on my website, which is bodymindhormones.com. And I have a book called Safe Hormones, Smart Women, which is one of my bestsellers, which is really the importance of hormone health and how to eat foods to maintain that, and the controversies. Women have become more frightened of estrogen than they are of being attacked and absconded by terrorists who have stayed single all their lives. So I really address that, because now we don't want generations of women to not get the benefit of estrogen. Estrogen is, we discovered that the Women's Health Initiative information in 2002, much of it was wrong and not applicable to women. So please read that book and understand, and don't be frightened of hormones, and know how to caretake and feed your own hormones. And I have a book called Hormone Deception: How Your Environment Might Be Deceiving Your Hormones and How to Protect Yourself and Your Family. It was one of the original breakthrough books on pollutants in the environment, like plastics and phthalates. Sergeant General Koop had come out with a whole entire government paper saying there was nothing wrong with phthalates. So I took each one of his points, went through all his references, and really made a point-by-point presentation of why he was wrong. And it was one of the original books about how do we reduce exposure, because it's everywhere and it's dinging our children's brains. So what is the problem and how do you deal with it? What are the foods that are dangerous to eat? So because of that book, which is written for the public in a really fun way, I was invited to be a hormone scholar at a think tank at Tulane Med School for many years, and I got to work with all the major scientists that discover how estrogens work and how estrogens in the environment work, and what do we do about it. So I've been a scientist and a researcher and a clinician and an author and a patient. So I've had the honor, for some reason in my lifetime, to see medicine, and especially hormones and nutrition, from this 360-degree view, which most people, very few people get that vantage point. So some of my books influence that, reflect that. I have a brand new book coming out, which will be out shortly, called Sex, 50 Shades of Orgasm. And I'll tell you about that in just a minute, but stay tuned for that book. You are going to love that book. I had multiple orgasms writing it. And let's see, what other books do I have? I have me talking myself in the studio, and then the book itself, and then I have a book called Natural Answers for Women's Health, which is a 205 reference on women's conditions, foods to eat to help heal, like lupus and breast cancer. And then I have books about body mind that I did all the original artwork. And those, I love these books. And one's called Juicy Souls, How We Give Our Spirits Away and How to Get Them Back. Because we want to be able to enjoy our spirit here on earth while we're here. It's a delightful place to be if we're well, and if we choose a life, an examined life. And then I have a book called Why Is Love So Hard? Tips on How to Soften Love and Make It Stay. And that's one of my very, very favorite books. I've got a book called Heart Speak, the dangers and joy, the dangers of not listening to your heart, and what a hurt heart tells us. And then I've got a book, when my mother had dementia, I lived with her in the lockdown dementia unit for a year, in the bed with her in the unit. And I wrote a book called My Mother Who Wore Her Purse as a Shoe, which was the defining moment when my mother put her purse on her foot and was walking in a circle. That's the title I made that book. And so we work a lot with saving people's brains. And one of the best cases of cognitive decline that we can help is early onset dementia, the tragedy of people in their 30s and 40s. And nutrition and nutraceutical intervention, sometimes by intravenous method, can bring people's brains back. It's just incredible.
Well, you went from one side to the other. Did you talk about making Mr. Happy?
Oh, so the reason I wrote this sex book recently, it's just about done, and I want to self-publish that. I was asked about a little over half a year ago by a urologist and surgeon to co-author a book on erectile dysfunction, because they were opening up 100 clinics around the country. And so they know I write many books on hormones, and they wanted me to write about men and hormones. So I did a lot of research, and that book came out, I think, last week. and its title is a darling title. It's called Reviving Mr. Happy. But I don't like the cover.
The cover is
I had no control. The covers, I had no control over the cover. You know, they own the book. They hired me to collaborate with them. And it's a black cover with 2 bananas on it. And one's wilted and the other one's happy. So it's a great book, though, and they've opened up some clinics.
I bet you're not a stand-up comic.
Well, you know, I put myself through school partially as being a stand-up comic.
Mr. Happy's a stand-up comic.
But they were shocked to discover that their largest demographic at their new ED clinics, which are called new male, are men in their 20s and 30s.
So what happens that early?
Because of the estrogenic chemicals in the environment and the estrogen-oriented pesticides in our foods and a variety of other, you know, it's multifactorial. But we are seeing more and more issues, and even sexual issues, younger on.
So you went through the list. Did you tell them about your foot book?
No, but I was just gonna sit off of Reviving Mr. Happy with sex and 50 Shades of Orgasm. Can I do that, or do you want
50 Shades of Orgasm?
That's the new working subtitle.
Did you spend your last night?
Do not go and he is married to somebody as friends. But we're very close friends. But
well, let's hear, because those that's hilarious. Well, your book, both books, I mean, that's a pleasure of life. That it does help the health too, right? Orgasm.
When I was doing the research for Reviving this.
Hi everyone. Okay, again, we're with the doctors, Dr. J.E. Block and Dr. Lindsay Berkson. So don't go anywhere. They're going to be right back. You do not want to hear her book that she's talking about. So hold on just a moment. We're going to be right back with you. So don't go anywhere. If you have any questions, please send them to info@circleofvitality.com. We are on with the doctors, and they certainly are an amazing team, and we are definitely grateful to have them on. So don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We'll be right back with you.
Are you censoring what
no, we actually have to go back. People are just, they're like, oh no, not when you're really talking about some of the good stuff, right? So if you guys can please, you were just ending when you were talking about your book, and we just talked about how, you know, orgasms, that is something that's healthy for the body. So could you please, Dr. Berkson, pick up where you left off and go over that point you were making?
And we're talking about blood pressure and orgasm.
I know.
Is one of the ways to
healthy,
lower...
regular, satisfying. The emphasis is on satisfying sex. Helps keep your blood pressure down. If you're not satisfied, it can make your blood pressure go up.
I wrote an article on that.
Yeah.
And it does different things for women and men. Women need to have sex with love, satisfying, and in retrospect, you say, "Oh my
so
God."
cute. He does this little. I love this little visual. That's great.
Well, I don't know what I'll say. Men, they need some of that too, but their orgasm is a literal orgasm where they have to feel good, better. Ah! They need to have that, and women need some of that, but they also need everything that encompasses that, including love, holding, touching, the future, and if possible, the past.
Well, the reason the Women's Health Initiative even started their research was we have so many women who are getting older in the United States. We don't want to topple our Medicare system. So they wanted to figure out, how do we keep our older women healthier? So that's why the Women's Health Initiative started. They're looking at every which way to keep you healthier. So they noticed that one of the first symptoms of heart disease in men is that they lose their libido. And they wanted to see if this happened in women. So they did this huge observational trial on several 100,000 women. And they discovered information that blew the scientist's mind. And this is 26 different scientific institutions, including Harvard, sponsored by the government, the NIH, etc. They discovered that if a woman could look back over her lifetime and say to herself that she had satisfying sex regularly with a partner, and in this case, it's interesting where this goes into same-sex versus non-same-sex, but that's another discussion, with her male partner, she had statistically less plaque in her arteries more than any medication could protect her. That she had less use of antidepressants, less attempt at suicide, and an overall higher quality of life. Well, when I read that, I knew I had to write a book on sex, that it was right up there with veggies and exercise. And I got into comparing, because I'm a hormone scholar, estrogen and testosterone from the atoms to the molecules to the receptors, and I was able to see that right at the atoms, men are different, women are different, play that difference into the boudoir, into the bedroom, into the way you approach sex. You use sex.
Hello, everyone. We are on with the doctors. They're getting into a little juicy topic. They're getting to the topic of sex right now. And I think that they're back with us.
I probably should.
Let's see. We're going to be on shortly again with the doctors. You don't want to go anywhere. They are talking about so much good stuff, and there are definitely things that we need to hear about. So don't go anywhere. I think we're right back with the doctors. Thank you both for your patience. It's the internet, right? So sometimes we have this. I guess there's just too much electricity. Is there too much electricity? I think that might be what's going on here. Let me see if we can see you all. All right. Okay. So you're talking here. You're just paused just a bit. Give me a second. We're going to make sure that you guys are back on here shortly. Like I said, they're giving so much great electricity here, and we don't want you to miss anything. It's just let's see here. That give us just a moment, everyone. We'll be right back with the doctors.
Should I go ahead and make coffee? Drink your coffee?
Yeah, I have it in there. I meant to put it in here. So you're not supposed to drink coffee from styrofoam cups. There's a very specific.
Okay, guys, we'll have them right back on here shortly.
Toxicology margin. That promotes breast cancer. Benzene is a big promoter.
Okay, we're back on. Hi, doctors. So sorry about that.
We stopped some electricity. So we're talking about ways to lower blood pressure naturally. And you mentioned sex, and then you mentioned intercourse, and then you mentioned satisfying sex. But there are other natural things to do. And we talked about magnesium, we talked about potassium, and if I had to pick out two vegetables, one would be beets and the other would be cucumbers. But not just one cucumber, but 6 stalks of cucumbers a day. Cucumbers?
What is
Celery.
Celery.
I get my seeds mixed
You were
up.
still thinking about sex.
I know, and then
We put cucumber on the cover rather than the banana.
Oh,
Cucumbers
God.
don't wilt so much as
And
banana.
Dr.
You laugh about sex when you're 5 years old, and when you're 65 years old, people laugh about it. Which is good. If you could laugh, if you could be filled with life, that's
Yes.
what you want when you age, is to keep your life force and spirit filled. That's living a good life.
So
right?
6 stalks of celery
Yeah.
will help keep your life fulfilled.
But it has to be organic celery, because inorganic celery is one of the dirty dozen.
Right.
It holds on to estrogenic pesticides, so when you have a real difficult time losing those love handles, and estrogenic pesticides make it really hard for you to lose weight.
And these days, organic celery is not much more expensive than the inorganic.
Yes, isn't that nice? Because it used to be different.
And
Definitely
beets.
worth it.
And one could eat beets, pickled beets, okay. Fresh beets, fantastic.
I've got a great recipe for beets. Want to hear it? It's so delicious that even a beet hater loves it. My patients have said, I've always hated beets, but this recipe has made me love beets.
What is it?
Well, you have a steamer. So a steamer is a two-layered pot. The top layer has holes in it, and the bottom has water boiling. And you cut up some beets, and you get beets with fresh greens coming out of the ends. And you cut up the greens, but you don't put them in the beginning, and you steam the beets until they're somewhat soft to your liking.
Do you peel the beets first?
You peel the beets, and then at the last few minutes, you put in the beet greens and let them steam.
So you cut those off first?
You cut them off first because the beet root needs to cook longer than the greens. Then when they're all done and you put them on a plate or in a bowl, you put half of fresh lemon juice. You just get a lime. You just squeeze the lime, and lime makes it taste incredible. And you put what I call the three musketeers: lime juice, organic granulated garlic, which has a much better flavor than non-organic granulated garlic, and sea salt or no salt. I've never done it with your no salt. And you put that over the greens, the beet greens, and the beets, and it's so delicious, it'll make you mew like a little kitty cat. I swear to God. There's another food that vasodilates so you won't die young. You know which food that is?
Yeah.
What?
We're not talking about the rocket plant.
We are.
The rocket plant? Arugula?
Arugula
is a green that causes nitric oxide production, which opens up your blood vessel and helps contribute to better blood pressure. So stick a handful of that in with the rest of your greens in your salad.
And then you'll see rockets, or have a rocket, or...
The 4th of July is coming around.
Right. And Dr. Block.
So beets, when you do beets like you said, which really sounds good, or beets anyway, or even beet juice, but one has to be aware that when a person consumes beets, that their stool will look red, and tell the doctor that when your stool is red, it's red because of the beets. I had these 2 patients come to me saying, I went into the emergency room because my stool was red, and they thought I was bleeding. So it does do that.
Right.
And I just asked a simple question, do you consume beets?
Because beets are very high in taurine, which we said was good for the brain and the blood vessels, and they promote nitric oxide, which is like a yoga class, like a big of your arteries when you eat the food, so they vasodilate so that you also can dilate.
Other foods, sardines. Sardines in water.
Well, I have a question with that. Sardines are very high in PCBs.
They tell me that PCBs are up the food chain.
I just went to this toxicology module. I was shocked. Walter Crinian, who was the environmental chair at Southwest College of Naturopathic Medicine, and he just left 3 or 4 months ago and is now working for a company in Florida. So he was at the conference presenting. He is the world's expert, really, on toxicology.
Sardines.
He kind of blew my mind. He said sardines are very high in PCBs, and he said any farm-raised salmon, a lot of people are trying to eat more fish,
Farm-raised salmon.
very high in PCBs.
But sardines, please don't blow my little fish.
I'm going to call him and email him again, but he said, which I was recommending people eat sardines, he said they're very high in PCBs. And I was wondering if there's a source that or not, and I should email him, and I could tell people next week when we chat, Tangi, the yay or the nay of sardines. But PCBs keep you fat.
That would be great.
Keep fat, keep your kid's brain not working right, and yelling at you. They're the chemicals that fuss with your quality of life. So you don't want them in your food.
Right.
All sardines aren't created equal.
That's
it's
true.
a name for a little fish, they call it sardines. And maybe the sardines are herrings that have a lot of fat in them.
Herrings have a lot of PCBs.
Of course, but depends what sardines.
So
Anyhow,
which are the good and the bad? I'd like to go get the good sardines, but I don't know. I have to email Walter and ask him because he's reading all these
I
data
tell
now.
folks to get their sardines in water, not oil, because when they put oil, it's slid oil, and which is not very good oil.
But you can get it in olive oil.
You can get it, and it's probably better to get it in water because it's the oil that holds on to the PCBs. But because it's so low on the food chain, the small sardines,
smaller they are, the more they cost.
And one other question I have is, because I love smoked oysters, but sardines and smoked oysters, they all come in these tin cans, and the tin combines with different oils in the fish and make tin toxic compounds.
And not
I've
only
been
that,
worrying about
not only that, they spray the inside of the cans.
I know,
and
I
that
know.
spray is
You have to become a breatharian, I swear to God. It's hard to eat
because
healthy food.
that is a.
So, in fact, if I would just go with my tongue, and my tongue was not under my command, I would have none of smoked oysters every day. I love them so much, especially the spicy ones, but it's not good to eat fish in tin too much. Do you agree with that?
It's not good to eat anything, the same thing, too much. Although there's some things you can't have too much of.
Like what? Lettuce? What? Oh.
Her book. Your book. Oh, leave it for Dr. Block. I love it, Dr. Block. Dr. Block. Yes, and happiness.
It's going to be a bestseller. I just know it.
It is.
Fresh oysters, although they're hard to shuck, it is healthy.
I love that word, shuck. Shucks, man. Shucks.
But you have to get oysters from a healthy place.
And so how do you know? You mean like Whole Foods? Or what, or fish market? What do you mean by a healthy place? So where do we go get healthy fish?
I had lunch with a fish inspector
Really?
and in California 2 weeks ago, and what she does, she is responsible for the shellfish in California. So they inspect them, they do cultures there, they do toxicology, and they also check for hepatitis and so on, and how long they have to cleanse themselves before they're put in the public. So there are people
Little
looking
clams underneath the shower with the stuff. Okay.
but there are people looking out for us.
So so did she say where the good places to buy fish are? Did you ask her that?
I didn't ask her
You didn't get
that
into that?
because they have places like Costco there that they may not have. in
Yeah,
other places.
usually the cheaper stores sell a lot of things that are less money but not so great. You want to get wild caught fish. They have less of the bad, nasty chemicals that keep you fat and angry, and your kids.
But even with that, like Atlantic salmon is better than other salmon.
Than farm raised salmon, right? So and if you go to a fish market, they usually get fish thrown in every day, fresh. So that's a good place to go, right?
Except depends where they got the fish in from. If they're flown in from the Chilean border where they raise farm.
I know, see, you can't trust all labeling. There was a big expose a year ago where they were putting labels, they were removing the old labels saying this is good to sell by this date. And when it came close to that date and the fish wasn't sold, the people at the store just ripped off that label and put on another one so that there were increased levels of bacteria. And it's hard to know who to trust with food. And this is becoming more and more an issue. So the way I deal with this in my own diet, because it's hard for all of us to figure out what is truly healthy food to eat. So I raise most of my time for a garden. I do it through sprouts. They're inexpensive, they're fresh. I have every day a big bowl of like 8 or 9 different sprouts. I make my own kimchi and sauerkraut. I have patients come on over and go through 100 pounds of vegetables and have a kimchi party and put some fermented food, which is healthy for your mother gut, a handful of raw pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds, and I try and have that once a day. And I've raised that food myself. It costs pennies to make. All you do is soak it and then rinse it twice a day. It's easy breezy. And then I know I'm getting good food. Now when I travel, I can't do that. But I go buy broccoli sprouts and sprouts when I do that and try and have a third of a handful of broccoli sprouts at least once a day, because it's such a concentrated form of healthy polyphenolic compounds. And so I don't trust too much food anymore. So that's what I've done.
Unfortunately, you have to eat it every day.
I know, if you don't eat, you get tired, right? I know, it's an issue. Now, last night I went out on a date. I couldn't believe it. He invited me over to his home, and he had a big organic garden. We went into the garden, and we picked all of our veggies.
And you went out in the garden where you raised
He had chickens, he had his own eggs, and I said, this is how I've gone to heaven. I'd rather eat and have a date like this and be taken to a 5-star restaurant. I was so delighted. And then I made all the dressing. I put extra virgin organic olive oil, balsamic vinegar, or put some fresh garlic that we cut up and chopped up, and put in cayenne pepper and black pepper and sea salt, and then we shucked nuts, because nuts are a great source of food.
And Caesar shucking nuts and shucking oysters.
It is.
Oh, you have to.
Although we were shucking pecans, they were a little bit arduous. So we had this salad that was fresh from the garden, with greens and broccoli and chives and onions, and then we put in pecans in there, and we had chicken and brown rice with some wild rice and that salad. It was a wonderful meal.
When you eat good, you feel good.
Yeah, you do. You sleep better. You wake up in the morning with hope rather than despair and exhaustion. It's a different world. A world with energy and vitality is one planet. And when you don't feel good in your body and you're exhausted, worried, and anxious, it's a different planet.
But Tangi takes it to another level, that you're there. It's not just what you eat, what you feel, it's what you wear.
Yes. Which, look at you all. It's interesting because your pocket sort of coordinates with Dr. Berkson's dress. So I'm looking at your coordination there. I'm sure you didn't totally plan that. But
actually, I have short shorts on.
Oh, do show. Oh my goodness! Look at those hot legs, Dr. Berkson. You are a hot.
65-year-old.
You do not. Okay, that is amazing. You look absolutely great, both of you. And it is true. I did a segment yesterday, a fashion segment, and we spoke about that energy that you vibrate when you enter a room, and it's not just bright colors, but we have that joy within, which is our color, that we wear. And clothes, it's okay. It's not superficial to take care of yourself. That just simply means that you value who you are and you are in tune with that. And I think that's where health and wellness starts, when you're in tune with who you are personally. As a person.
It's the whole package.
Right.
I so agree. And so how I first met you was I came here with a gynecologist. We were giving a talk on bioidentical hormones and nutrition. And in the audience, there were so many physicians that were 300 pounds and dressed like they had no sense of self-worth. I would not want to go to a physician like that.
I agree with you.
Yes. Oh, sorry, I didn't turn off my phone here. So you want to go to somebody who's walking their talk and saying they knew how to pull themselves together, so I have some idea that they'll help me pull myself together. But if you go to somebody, and a doctor will only encourage you to the point that they live it.
Wow,
so if a doctor walks around not in great shape and 10, 15 pounds overweight, which is many people, they won't get on you for your 15 pounds overweight or try and be mean and feel your best, because they don't. And they'll only want to just give you a script for the symptom of your issue rather than the cause, and want to really be your ally to get you well. So a big part of health is having a team of allies. It takes a village to keep us healthy.
That's why we do well together. As you know, she practices, lives in Austin, goes all over the country, going to meetings, teaching, and so on. And every month she comes, and I give my problem patients to her, and together we solve a lot of problems.
And but one of the reasons I love coming here, besides you just being so smart, and this is such a great clinic and resource, is you walk your talk. We get up every morning, early in the morning, and meet at the gym. And we work out for about 45 minutes to an hour. And then we go, and it's a bunch of guys and myself. And then we go.
That's why you like it.
Well, I really love it. They're guys who care about their health. I don't know why there aren't more ladies coming. A lot of ladies don't work out that regularly. Ladies don't.
But look at the people we work. Look at the ages people that work out. Our third, 40.
We have the whole span of all the different ages. We're the oldest. And then we go have breakfast together in a community and pray.
Are we grandmother and grandfather?
We're crone and chromies, I guess. I don't know. sage, I don't know what we are, thyme and sage. But then we come to the clinic and we have been recharged for the day. And we can talk to people. How much do you exercise? What do you do? How are you living? Whereas you go to most docs, they're really not going to talk about that. They don't value that as much, and they often don't do that themselves. Not everybody, but they often don't do that themselves, so they're not going to get on you to do it, right?
You're absolutely right.
So I'd love to work with you. Besides, you're so spirited. You really are what you say, and there aren't a lot of people who do that, and I really value that.
Oh,
Likewise.
you guys are, oh my goodness, I cannot tell you what a tremendous team, and your energy that you feed off with one another, but the passion is there, but you guys are so like-minded, and I'm right with you on what you're saying. So it's awesome that we have this sort of connection, all three of us going on, but you two definitely are powerhouses, and the world needs to hear more about you. Okay, so we are just, everyone, are you there, doctors? Oh, great, you're there with us. Okay, are you want to make sure that you are not freezing? Oh, okay, you guys are there. It's freezing just a bit, but we're almost to the punchline. I don't want to miss anything. So
so you're what's that? Watch night and one.
Okay, 1 second, doctors. We are just making sure. There is one question that I wanted to make sure I asked just before we ended. Are you guys with me? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I'm going to do, doctors, just to make sure that we have a good connection. I'm going to give them just a second here. We are going to just reboot quickly and make sure that we can end with the doctors on a note that you all are so deserving of, and them too. So one moment, bear with me. We will be right back with you again. We're with the amazing doctors, Dr. J.E. Block and Dr. Lindsay Berkson. They truly are a tremendous team. And here we are. Dr. Block, sir, before we ended, I did want to go over something. It was like maybe 20 minutes ago, but you were speaking about blood pressure, and you said that we are to take a third or 2 tablespoons of something, and then it ended. So there is someone they were writing down this information. Could you go over that again, sir?
No salt, which comes from Morton. New salt, spelled NU-salt, from Continental, is pure potassium. This is what we do not get naturally in our bulls and our meats, and it's because of more sodium and less potassium that many of us have hypertension and more heart issues.
Okay.
So no salt, new salt. But periodically, to make sure that there's not too much potassium, which is dangerous, too much of anything is dangerous, that they get their chemistries called a CNP medical profile that will check their potassium, check their kidney function, all for one price. We charge $12.50, and every 6 months, every year, should be done to make sure the potassium does not get too high, but it should be done anyhow, and that is included blood sugar and a few other things.
Okay. And Dr. J.E. Block, you're right there in Tulsa. So if any of you are in Tulsa, I know many of you are, please look up Dr. J.E. Block. He is one of the best doctors in Tulsa, if not the best, right, Dr. Block?
There are hundreds of doctors. There are others better than I am. I just work very hard.
I know,
and I've
you
been
do.
doing it for the last 52 years. So
Yes.
it looks like we're out of time.
Yes, we are out of time. Dr. Block, we've got just a couple minutes. There was just a quick, if you can give one quick answer to this question, what causes joint swelling in the knees? Can you give one quick answer to that? And we don't have to go deep into it.
I have 100 minutes to talk about. There's many. How old is this person?
She is in her late 40s.
Is she overweight?
I believe that she is definitely trying to get her weight under control, but
Okay,
certainly not too overweight.
So if someone is this age, in your 40s, 50s, if they're overweight, the most common cause is osteoarthritis. The knees were only meant to carry 150, 160 pounds. If there's 200, 240 pounds, there's too much wear and tear in that joint.
Okay.
So it may be osteoarthritis.
Okay.
If you were younger, there are other causes of it, rheumatoid arthritis, diseases like lupus. If she were younger and exercising, it would be exercise-induced
But
repetitive
there's many
arthritis.
nutritional and food ways to treat all of those issues.
Yes.
And to get results quickly.
And one of the biggest is staying away from gluten for arthritis, but in general, that's arthritis other places. So one would be osteoarthritis, high on my list.
And Dr. Kaufman did research on thousands of patients giving niacinamide 3 to 4 times a day in 5 or 6 weeks. Many people with OA have tremendous improvement, so that's an easy attempt of a fix, besides exercising with quads and losing weight.
Yes. Well, wow, this has been so amazing. Thank you for giving on this beautiful Saturday morning. You guys are two beautiful spirits that I cannot tell you how grateful we are to have had this deposit.
If anyone wants to talk with me and have a consult, because I consult with people all over the world, as I'm going more into semi-retirement and writing more books, that's what I like to do. So my phone number is 512-507-3279, and we can chat and go over a bunch of things and see if you can have me as part of your village to help keep you well.
Isn't that amazing? You all have her actually personal phone number. Now this is wow, so incredible. So thank you, Dr. Berkson. You all definitely reach out to her, especially if you're there, you have other questions, and you want to continue to have that life of vitality that you so rightfully deserve and desire. Dr. Block, you all, I feel so connected to you. You're amazing, and thank you, sir. Both of you guys are a power team.
Thank you so much for having us on and allow us to chat with your family of friends.
Well, thank you, Dr. J.E. Block and Dr. Lindsay Berkson. We'll see Lindsay soon in the Cove, June the 7th. You do not want to miss it at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. You guys continue to take care. You look incredible and continue changing lives.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
It's the first night like that.